Our first year of being debt free was in 2020. And so in 2020 was probably a bigger year for us because we were able to turn those debt payments into wealth building generators. And so in 2020, we saved and invested $127,000.
Wow, that is incredible. And I love that flip. You're not paying the interest anymore, you're now earning the interest. So,
Yeah.
how did you invest that money?
So you want to?
No, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
All right. So we started with our workplace retirement accounts. So we started there. And we also have an HSA. So we maxed that out, maxed out the 401ks.
Which is a health savings account for those that might not know. So you can look that up. Yeah.
And we also did Roth IRAs for the both of us. We maxed out 2019. We had the little bit of an extension until July in 2020, and we maxed out 2020 Roth IRA. And then we also invested for our son in a 529 plan.
That's incredible. Yeah, these are all tax advantaged ways to save. So I didn't hear that you signed up for a Robinhood account and bought a bunch of stocks. It sounds like you guys found tax advantage ways to do this and made it work for you. That's very cool. So generally, you hear these big numbers like 104,000 in 12 months. Did I get that right? 104,000? And 224,000 in 2.5 years. That's a lot of money to pay off. Generally, what income range are you guys working with? And I know you guys have lots of different jobs and things like that, but what's the general income range so people understand?
Combined, maybe like 160 or so.
Wow. So that, I mean, to do that with so you guys were living maybe on, I mean, you were probably saving, I guess we could call saving when paying down debt. You're probably saving 70% of your income, something like that. 60, 70%.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
then side hustles too, right? And so we increased our income with side hustles. So in 2018, we made 66,000 in side hustle income. So that certainly helped. In 2019, we made 40,000.
Yeah.
So in those 2 years, $100,000 in extra income. And all of that, after we paid our tithes, all of that went straight towards debt payments.
That's incredible. Talk to me about the tithing. Why is that important to you guys?
We believe that our money belongs to God. We're firm believers in that. So we believe that He can do more with that 10% than we can do with the 100% of that. And so it's a measure of our faith, and by faith we give. And that's just something that we don't compromise on. And I think when you operate with an open hand, you're able to receive too.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I love it. Well, you got your faith and you got your faith. So that's
right.
That's a good thing to do. So talk to me about this investment side of things. A lot of people can be intimidated when they go from this debt-free zone. I paid off my debt. I understand that. I owe people money. I'm paying them off. Now I'm going into this investor zone. Did that feel intimidating to you guys when you started off?
Absolutely. So there's two sides of, or two schools of thought when it comes to paying off debt and investing. And I'm sure you've heard of this too. So some people think that you should pay off your debt first and then invest. Some people think you can do both at the same time. So we were part of the group that did both at the same time. Although we did minimal investing, right? So we just did enough to get the match, and then everything else went towards debt payoff. But yes, it is very scary to get started in investing, because I feel like it's a different mindset when you're talking about building wealth. And so there's a level of risk there that wasn't quite there with your debt in terms of possibly losing your money. And so it definitely is a real thing. And so we had to educate ourselves, increase our financial literacy in that area. And so that certainly helps. So reading books, listening to podcasts like yours. So that for sure helped us gain more confidence on our journey.
Excellent. And then when you were deciding what to invest in, did you work with a financial advisor? Did you guys DIY it? How did you go about that process?
So we actually started with a certified financial planner, and we were with her kind of throughout the entire journey. And she was kind of managing our investments. And then when we became debt free, we were like, okay, well, let's learn about investing. Like, what is this? So we listened to things, listened to podcasts, read books, kind of dove deeper into that. And once we became more comfortable with it ourselves, we actually stopped paying for our financial planner because we're like, we can do this ourselves. And the money that we were giving to our financial planner, guess what? We can invest it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference too, because you guys, I think you have a genuine interest in figuring out how to do this. Some people, and no knock against financial advisors at all, if you're like, hey, I need to invest, but I got a million other things to do, hand it to a professional to do it. But you guys had that desire, you had that interest in learning more, you had enough desire to read some books about it, right? So I mean, you had that desire, right? Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think no one's going to care about your money more than you do. And so I think that's ultimately what it came down to, is like, there's nothing overly complicated about investing. It's scary when you don't know, because you're operating off of information that you do not know. And so, yes, I can understand why it's scary for some people, but the more we became familiar with the process, the easier it seemed, the more accessible it seemed. And so then we started doing some things on our own while she was still there, kind of holding our hands a little bit. And then we pulled the plug, and now we're doing it ourselves.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you talked at the early portion of the interview about building generational wealth. Talk to me about what that means for you and your young family.
Yeah, so our baby boy, actually, his name is Legacy. And we were pretty intentional about the name Legacy. And so we named him just with having like a legacy of faith, so passing on our faith to him, and a legacy of wealth and finances. And so we are actually determined to leave him, and then I'm also pregnant, I have a baby on the way. We're Thank you. We're determined to leave our children better off than where we were. So we don't want to send them to school and rack up a whole lot of debt. So that's kind of where we mean by generational wealth. Yeah.
Yes, just making sure that I know a lot of people kind of glorify the struggle, right?
Yeah.
You always like to hear the underdog story of, someone overcoming. And
Right.
while all that is great, and, we all get inspired by that, I want to get to the point where he doesn't have to have that same story, that same struggle. Like the cycle needs to stop somewhere.
Right.
So he needs to be starting from where we left off, and where we left off is going to be better than where we started. And so we want to give him a leg up, not a hand out. And so financial literacy is going to be a big part of legacy, right? So the same concept of teaching them how to fish instead of giving them the fish. So that's a major key. So we need to be educated on these things first, so that we can teach him how to fish, but also giving him a leg up, giving him an advantage, giving him privilege. Yeah. And so that the story doesn't have to start, or his story doesn't have to start with, I dug myself out of $200,000 of debt.
Yeah.
Like his story can be like, oh, I got a down payment on a home from mom and dad, and that allowed me to, further my career and all this other stuff.
And then it continues. He'll teach his kids that, and it just continues down the road.
I love that. And I love your points on that too. I'm going to butcher the statistic, but I think I read somewhere it's like 70% of second generational wealthy families lose it by that second or third generation because of the steps that you are talking about not doing, making sure they understand financial literacy. Sometimes it's so much be like, hey, we did it all and we saved all the money and we became millionaires, and so our kids never have to worry about anything. But does that really give them the path to continue that legacy, right?
Exactly. And so for anyone listening who may not be in a position to leave financial wealth in terms of monetary things, I don't want them to be discouraged by what they're hearing and, all of our numbers. They can still pass down the knowledge. And so it's still important for them to get the information first, learn it, understand it, so that they can teach it, so that even if they don't have anything physical they can pass down knowledge that their kids could then use to build wealth and set up generations after that.
I love it. I love it. Well, you guys are debt-free by a mile, and you are amassing some huge piles of investments. What are your long-term goals now as a couple?
Retire.
I love it. Tell me more about that.
I mean, basically, I'm working 5 days a week and I love my job. I love what I do, but I really want to get back home with my baby. So cutting down like a couple of days is like, I think for me, at least, my top priority.
And that's what we're working towards. So I think we're going to do it in phases. So we want to have options is what it comes down to. And so the idea of working until 67 or being stuck at a job until 67 is not pleasing to my ears. And to learn that there's a path that is contrary to what we've been told and taught and heard all of our lives is very reassuring. And so our goal is to ultimately have the option not to work as much as we're working. And so in phases, so Faith will be the first to lower, decrease her frequency of actual work. And so we're going to do it in phases, but that's our goal, to be able to have the time to do the things that we want, time freedom. And
then not to be so dependent on the job. So, I mean, we all know like this pandemic happened and we were all like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. We don't have the money. My job fired me. Like, I don't want to be in that position. So while we're able to work, I want to continue. So if God forbid something like that happens again, like I don't have to be dependent on my job to supply my income. So.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment. And especially with everything that's been going on lately, having options is a fantastic place to be. So kudos for you guys on everything you've done here. I love the story. It is a fantastic way to see the path of where you were and even just the journey of your marriage and the lessons learned as well. So somebody's listening right now and they are jacked up about getting rid of their debt. Maybe they've got a mountain of debt like you guys did, something, call it over $100,000 and student loans, other things. What is the first thing they should do following this interview?
I think the first thing that you should do is sit down with yourself and come up with your why and like where you want to be, why this is important to you. Like, don't even worry about the numbers. Don't even worry about how much debt you're in. Like, there are so many bumps in the road that where if you don't have a solid why that you can look back on, like you're just not going to be successful. You're going to go back. So definitely sit down with yourself, figure out why this is important to you, kind of your goals in life, what you want to do. And then I would kind of work from there. That'd be the first thing.
Yes. And I would tell people that they are one decision away from a completely different life. So when we look back on our journey, what we realize is that there were a series of choices that we made. And with every yes that you say to something, so let's say going out to eat, going on a trip, you're saying no to a debt-free life. And so we tell people that examine the choices that you make because you're either choosing to become debt-free and build wealth or you're choosing not to. And so you're one decision away from a completely different life. Start where you are with what you have. Put one foot in front of the other. Regardless of how slow that may seem, forward is forward. And so that's what I would encourage them with.
That's incredible. I love it. And then investing, you guys, we've talked about the debt-free side and then the investing side. People are listening and say, well, I think I would maybe like to try this investing stuff too. And I think maybe I could do it if I focused my attention and just learned maybe a simple way to do it. How can people keep this simple like you guys did?
I would tell them that they should look into the opportunity cost and then the opportunity cost, for example. So your money inside of a savings account is probably at 0.5%, meaning that you can't save your way to wealth. And so if you have money just sitting around in a savings account, your money's going to lose value because of inflation. So you're already losing right there. And so if you want to build wealth, you have to invest it and get a much bigger return than inflation. And one of the easiest ways to do that, there are many, but one of the easiest ways to do that is to invest in the stock market. And when I say the stock market, I'm talking low cost index funds that capture the entire market so that you're getting a portion of the gains from all of these companies that you either use or have heard of. So we're talking Apple, Google, Amazon, all of those companies. You can get a share and become a shareholder and get the profit that these companies who are forever growing and innovating, you can get a portion of that and use that as passive income to retire on.
I love it. It's a simple path, everybody. It can help you build wealth. And we have two people right here that are proof of that wealth building success. Thank you both so much for being here. Where's the best place for people to learn more about you and maybe connect?
So Instagram. So you can follow Leo on Instagram. Leo's the one that kind of posts about investing, posts about our debt-free journey. And Instagram is leo.jeanlouis. Go ahead. You can say more too.
You can also find a copy of my book, Got Debt, The 7 Bulletproof Steps to Debt Freedom, on Amazon. So those would be the two places to contact us. And feel free to DM me on Instagram. I respond to all of my DMs, so would love to hear from you all.
Excellent. Thank you very much, both of you. Hey, everybody, these are two people that have a mission to help and to serve and to help everybody get to the next level on their wealth building journey. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much. We enjoyed that.